Hey guys, it's Allie here. I'm gonna hang out for a minute, just let people kind of like hop on here. I'm gonna invite, there were a couple of people that were like super excited for this one. So I'm just gonna pull them in and we will get started. So as you guys are hopping on, say hello. We're doing our live channeling of Jeane Dixon, which is super fun. She's been just kind of sitting here, laying back, having a little bit of fun with it, relaxing. And so as you're hopping on, say hello. Hey, Alex. Hey, Louise. Hey, Talia. Hey, Jennifer. So we've got Jeane is here, Jeane Dixon. So Jeane was she said I was she was like, I'd say pseudo famous. She's sitting here and she's got like beautiful dark hair and like really full lips and kind of like heavy eyelids a little bit. And she's just like sitting and she's got this really beautiful, looks like 1960s Chanel. It's like a suit, like a skirt suit, like a Chanel skirt suit. If you guys know those, like the cream color, cream with the black lining, a lot piping around it. Like she's very fashionable and she's got one of those 60s hats with a little bouffant. So she's very like ready to go. So she's saying, she's saying in my life is Jeane Dixon. They always start that way because, you know, she said we have many, many lifetimes, many incarnations, and many incarnational experiences where we get to try on different hats, so you would say. So she's saying, in my life as Jeane Dixon, I was quite the famous astrologist. I enjoyed predicting the future. I enjoyed telling fortunes. I enjoyed the crystal ball classics, the crystal ball classes. I enjoyed being a bit of a mystic. She calls herself the modern mystic, at least in my day. And she's saying, I enjoyed working with the Kennedys. She worked with the Kennedy family. John F. Kennedy was a man of many, she's saying measures, man of many measures, like means and way, like means and ways. He called me in quite often to predict outcomes for him, some of which did not always come to pass because the learning of them changed them, which is possible to do. It is possible to read energy and foresee one outcome and have another happen because the being who predicts the outcome is not aware that the being who has received that counterintelligence, is what she's saying, at counterintelligence, is going to go take an action that may thwart it. She said, and that is the purpose of future predictions. When you are given one to give to others, it is often so that they may have some peace with it. It is sometimes so that because they're meant to change it. So that is the glory of the future prediction. She said, I do not wish to stay on this topic too long. I simply wanted to clear that up for you. She's saying she wanted to clear it up for us. She's saying, in my life as Jeane Dixon, I was quite the astrologist. I enjoyed my work as an astrological medium. She's calling herself like a medium, a psychic. I was a practicing psychic. I did practice as a medium for quite some time, though it was not my favorite thing to do. The spirits that I entertained and the beings that I interfaced with were not always as pleasant to me as they are to you, Allison. She's saying I had some lingering fears that I did not address around it. I very much believed that in negative entities and energies and believed that they could overcome me, thwart me. And she said nothing could be further from the truth, which of course she's got her hands up like this. Of course I know this now, of course. And she just put them back in her lap, like folded them in her lap. And she's saying, of course, I know this now. I know that there's nothing but love up here, nothing but love up here. But in my time as a psychic, there were a lot of teachings still lingering about the dark arts and dark entities were very much feared in our crowd. She's saying in her crowds. She's saying, she's saying astrologers in my day and for many centuries talked about negative entities or dark spirits or dark beings as being beings who had not yet crossed over. And there were many misteachings around what those beings who had not crossed over were going to do, what they were capable of. The only difference between a being who has not crossed over and a being who has crossed over is the light in which they reside. A being who has not crossed over is still love and light. They still suffer slightly from attachment. They do not experience fear. They do not experience a lack of love, but they are attached to being in a certain place. It is not that they experience negativity as that suffering. It's kind of like a state of grace. There is non-attachment, but there is attachment at the same time. She said it's quite paradoxical. Though they are free and they are aware that they can completely cross over and go home at any time, they're still experiencing the desire to watch things play out here on earth, to be in a certain location, even though they are aware that they are free to go and roam and do and understand anywhere. So what I wish for you to understand is, she's saying the organic matrix is not what you think it is, Louise. She said, I will not discuss the matter further. She said, do not buy into such fantasies and fairy tales. She's saying they'll turn your brain to mush. They'll mush up your brain. They'll turn your brain to mush. And she's showing me someone mashing potatoes. So she's saying, now astrology is quite a cool concept, Allison. And I was like, yeah, I followed astrology for a long time. And then I went to like a more general astrology type of thing. I did, what's that lady's name? God. I'm like I think I'm so in Jeane's energy. I'm like, so she's saying, so she's saying with astrology, what you need to know is that the cosmos mirrors your collective consciousness just as much as your collective consciousness is co-created in your physical existences in your lifetimes. So what you believe is what you will perceive is very much true. She said, I wish I had been aware of this in my lifetime. I often thought I was fated to the cosmos. I was fated to the stars. I was fated to retrograde, which we did not, she's saying, we did not think the same way about retrograde as many of you do. It was not seen as a negative technological conundrum or a communication conundrum in my day. It was seen as a beautiful passing of time in which the stars and moon align and then pass and surpass each other. And there was nothing wrong with it. We did not see negativity around it. I use this as an example because many of you attribute negative experiences with Mercury retrograde. One famous astrologer came out with a simple, lighthearted prediction about that year's Mercury retrograde causing communication and technological conflicts, and it spread like wildfire. And now you associate it with every Mercury retrograde. There is no reason to fear any cosmic events. There is no reason to feel negativity around the cosmos at all. This was not something that I, as Jeane, predicted or understood would happen in my lifetime. I understood the blessings and the curses of the cosmos, but I did not see how our collective consciousness was actively co-creating them and mirroring them in our lives. I understood that, say, as a Libra, I'm a Libra. She's saying, as a Libra, and I have a moon in Leo and a rising Taurus. So she's like, do you understand any of what that means? I was like, I just understand there were planets in a certain place in time when I was born. And she's like, yes, accurate. So she said, now, it does not mean as much to you, so you do not make false meaning. She's saying you do not make false prophecies of it. You do not make meaning of it. You do not tell stories around it. You do not have fears around it as well. If you were to look in the stars, you would see a mirroring of events, a mirroring of cosmic thought patterns. But the stars are just as alive and alike as you are. Now, that does not mean that they cannot be gleaned for information. There are many of you who enjoy astrology, and continue to practice it and look toward horoscopes or look toward moonscopes. She's saying moonscapes for astrological predictions as to future events. And that's why I want to address the future events. Many of you are wanting to know what's going to happen, and that is the lure of astrology. Many of you want to understand, why is this happening in my life? And so you look to a horoscope or a profile, which does not take into account your collective consciousness and your many experiences that are making up your unique lens of perception in your life. Just because you're a Libra does not mean you have all the attributes of a Libra. Just because you're a Scorpio does not mean that you appear as a Scorpio all the time. You may have a mixing, she's saying a cocktail of experiences, a myriad of experiences that make you susceptible to make meaning of all sorts of things in your life. It is not merely because it is in your horoscope that something is happening. It is happening because you have drawn it to you. You have collective consciousness, and you manifest so unconsciously. She's like very unconsciously. So she's saying the things that befall you seem to befall you, right? The accidents and the predictions made, there's no coincidences in any of them. Even things that appear to be an accident, for a car accident, for example, is part of a cosmic manifestation of a greater plan. Now, the stars can be used to predict a myriad of events. But for cosmic astrologers like me, who also had claircognizance, she was very claircognizant. And she was telling me it wasn't just the stars that helped her predict things like Kennedy's assassination, or she's saying she was called in quite a bit by Roosevelt and Kennedy, and she predicted Nixon would be in office. I predicted many other things outside of being a White House, helping in public affairs is what she's calling it. But I was quite the White House consultant. They had a few other women and men consulting, and they still do. Many of them use higher intelligence and collective consciousness and are very keenly aware of the powers that be being far greater than anything you are ever told in your social media or on your news about what the government systems all over the world are doing in terms of collective intelligence. And she's pointing at her head. They're using telepathy, and they've been talking to me a lot about telepathy. They've been using telepathy to tap into collective consciousness, to predict turns of events, to turn the tides, to engage warfare, to prevent attack, to prevent warfare. They have been doing this for so long. Many of you, she's saying it would take your breath away. Many of you are keenly aware that telepathy exists, yet you are, she's showing like, you're like, ooh, I don't want to touch that. She's saying your minds are joined, your thoughts are collective. There is not one of you in the world who does not have telepathic or claircognizant abilities, because you are collective consciousness. You can pull down facts and figures and predict outcomes and understand other people and understand who your twin flame is, and why they're thinking what they're thinking, why they're doing what they're doing, and why the stars are aligning a certain way. In the sense of, because you are collective consciousness, because you are the one together. So she's saying, so in my life, I made many predictions through this collective consciousness channeling. I did not comprehend, like she's saying, she didn't like comprehend that that's what she was doing. She just knew that she was psychic and that she was a fairly accurate medium. And she said, my newspaper articles spread far and wide, and I was called upon by many famous beings, many famous spirits who I now understand the massive path that we were on together, the massive role I played on their path and in their lives, by predicting outcomes for them or supporting them in times of terror or times of great distress. It sounds like she was called in a lot. She's saying, great distress, great distress. As she says, as are you, Allison. I was like, yeah, I get that. Many grieving a loss would call upon me to call in loved ones, and I would confirm for them that the being had crossed over. As I mentioned, it was very feared, and there is fear in your society still of beings who have not crossed over when they are very loving. They're loving and life-giving is what she's saying. So she's saying, she's like, back to the astrologer and collective consciousness part. Now, I was famous for one thing and one thing only, my astrological predictions of the future. When you look to astrology, you're looking for answers. You're seeking solutions to problems of today that you're collectively manifesting, that you're collectively focusing on, that you're focusing on with such great pleasure. She said, yes, you find pleasure in focusing on pain. You find pleasure in focusing on problems that makes you feel significance. I apologize if this triggers you, as you would say. I apologize if this upsets you. If you say, no, that is not me. I urge you to look back over the turbulent times in your life and ask yourself, did I really take no pleasure in receiving the significance or attention or care or nurturing from others that I received when I was in times of distress? Pleasure and pain are often synonymous in your society. You do not need the pain to experience the pleasure. She's saying there are hundreds of thousands of examples in your stories and literature, in your media, over the millennia. She's saying the millennia of how pain and pleasure are considered synonymous in many degrees in your societies, even in the Bible, even in your religious texts. And she said this causes religious warfare. This causes catastrophic events to take place. The misunderstanding that pain does not have to be synonymous with pleasure. That pleasure can be experienced simply for pleasure's sake without the need for drama, without the need to coerce events or manipulate or control or predict or avoid conflict, right? Or cause conflict. Like she's saying, like, you cause conflict. When you wish to know, you thwart your opportunities to grow. She's saying, so knowing is about trusting. Oh, I had this coming through earlier today, and I get this, like, been getting this for a long time, but I had this specific message coming through today, that trusting is about knowing what is already there. So it's about remembering, like tapping into what already is. So trust what you know, and you will grow. If you seek to know, so she's talking about the future predictions, and she's showing someone reading their horoscope every day. Like, is today going to be the day? What's in the stars for today? Oh my gosh. Like she's saying, you can become a victim to that. And it thwarts your opportunities to grow and to expand. Now, there's nothing wrong with it. Wait for these geese to... Saying that, and she was just saying they're quite beautiful creatures, aren't they, Allison? And I was like, yeah, they're actually, I actually like geese. They're really peaceful to me when they're not honking. They're like honk. I think they're really cute though. So she's saying delight. You delight in them. So she's saying your collective consciousness wants to believe that there's some way to avoid potential conflict, hurt, pain, the loss of money, the loss of love, the loss of security, the loss of self, by predicting the future, by knowing all of what the future holds. That is much of what I saw in my lifetime. Now, as I stated, there is some truth to this. Sometimes you may predict the future or sense things coming in the future in order to change the outcome, not because you have the opportunity to, but because you were meant to change it. This being, me, has had many future predictions arise and then said, but I do not have the details or understand the context. And so what am I to do with this information? Why is this arising if I do not know where to go and what to do and what to say and what to whom or where this applies, right? Like you're only getting like bits and pieces and you're like, if I'm supposed to do something about this, then why am I only getting this little bit? Is that a block? And she said, no, it is simply to remind you that the collective consciousness is there. You call it inappropriately, many of you do, and many of you misuse it and abuse it. You overanalyze it. You make merriment of being able to predict future outcomes for others, be they true or not. Many of you make merriment of being able to know the future. And she's talking about people like getting readings and stuff like that. It soothes your soul. It is not wrong, but I wish for you to say, what is so very wrong about living in the present moment? What is so very wrong about saying, c'est la vie, and enjoying life, come what may, without having to prepare for a negative Mercury retrograde technological season? Do not be at the mercy of the cosmos. The stars align for your favor, not to thwart you. It is your mass predictions and your mass perception of those predictions that determines the collective consciousness's direction, like the state of fear. So if you see, for example, planets aligning in this being the end of the world, as was predicted by Nostradamus, and it does not happen, c'est la vie. You go on living, you go on enjoying. It means nothing, right? And so she's kind of saying like, these things can be predicted. There will be many of you who will expect negative events because of things you've gotten in a reading, which I don't do future stuff in readings really. I'm just like, no. She's saying you could, and I'm like, I don't. I just don't like it. Yeah, she was pointing out that like sometimes in like the prediction process can be really weird. But now that we understand it, it's kind of more, now that I understand that like you can, like my guides, a lot of people's guides won't even, my guides won't give me a lot of future stuff. They'll give me bigger picture things. But when it comes to time, I have asked them before, how come you'll say this certain thing is going to happen on this date, which I used to ask about that stuff a lot. Now I don't. And then it didn't. And they're like, well, you were meant to learn from that experience. That time is irrelevant. So it's really interesting. And you manifest collectively this obsession with time too, is what she's pointing out. So she's saying that's where astrology comes in for many of you, is this obsession with time and this obsession with knowing. And many of you use astrology as another system for knowing thyself. When if you know thyself as source and as love, there is no need to justify differentiation. Seeking differentiation is a mirroring of the egoic consciousness's need to fearfully separate from itself, from other people. So instead of finding how you are alike, you look at how you are not alike, and you use that as justification to isolate or feel alone or feel misunderstood. Well, this is why I felt so misunderstood. Well, you choose not to understand that you're all alike, so you're the only one perpetuating the misunderstanding. There's no one else who misunderstands you. They love you innately. So it's really interesting. She's saying the collective consciousness is a very interesting concept, Allison. And I was like, well, is it just a concept? She said everything in this world is conceptual, but it is also truth, It's also truth. So she's saying, as a White House psychic, I often predicted many things that were of great significance in the turn of events that they caused, right? Like she was meant to turn the tides. And she's saying that may be displeasing to many of you, as sometimes the tides turned in a way in which I did not enjoy, but it was meant to be. There's nothing that is not meant to be. So as you're manifesting these experiences in astrological predictions in Mercury retrograde and the negativity that you sometimes associate with solar flares or energy changes or upgrades, she's like listing all these things. She's going, oh my god, like I'm hearing, oh my goodness, my moon's in Leo. What does that mean about me? Like, how's that going to affect me this summer? You know, like she's just like, if you could, and she's talking about eclipse season. Oh, eclipse season is so hard on people. And she's saying eclipse season does not have to mean that things get hard. Because the vibration on the planet is, the Schumann resonance is vibrating at a quicker speed, that the Earth's vibration is rising, does not mean that you must go through pain, does not mean that you must go through struggle or hurt or harm. Simply because someone made a prediction about your relationship does not mean that relationship, she's bringing up something in particular, which I won't say, does not mean that relationship must take that turn. So I had a gal reach out to me after I saw a thing in a Facebook group, and she said, I've been told that I need to like by my guides, and she's pretty tuned in. She was like, I've been told by my guides in a reading by someone that I have to break up with my boyfriend, and I don't understand. I don't understand. Like, she's like, loves this guy. Like, it's just, they love each other. They have a great relationship. And she's saying they have a beautiful relationship. Lots of white light. Like, there's just so much love there. They have a great time. He's very loving and accepting of her. And she was like, I'm just devastated. I don't know what to do. And I was like, your guides are not going to say shit like that to you. Like, really, you know that, right? And so I was like, why don't if you feel comfortable messaging me, message me. And I was talking to her about it, and I was like, your guides are not, they can support you in what they think will be highest and best. But I was like, but does that make you happy, the thought of breaking up with him? And she was like, no, I'm devastated. And I was like, your guides will not tell you to do things that are going to devastate you. Okay. Like, I was like, what do you want to do? Fuck what your guides say. Fuck what the medium said. What do you want to do? You know what I mean? Like, sometimes, like, even in here, Eric has said before, when I'm channeling, he's like, if it doesn't resonate with you guys, if what Allie's saying doesn't resonate, fuck that. Fuck it. Go your own way. You get to choose. So, and I do believe that too. Like, we take what we want, we leave the rest, and we learn. And we have the experience, And sometimes, we're meant to say, no, I don't choose that. And that's the whole reason the prediction happened, is so that we would get really grounded in what we actually wanted, even if it was the opposite of what the prediction said, right? So you can't lose, like, you can't get it wrong. And she's saying, yes, great point, Allison, you cannot get it wrong. You cannot get it wrong when you choose happiness. She's saying, so choose love, choose happiness, choose to see the positivity in the stars and in the alignments. Dismiss the negativity in the horoscopes as much as you can, for they do not apply to everyone. They simply mirror your consciousness. You can see negativity in the stars or in negative events and say, well, this hurts. I'm afraid. What am I really afraid of, though? She said, you can choose love and peace instead of that. In my life as Jeane, I did not understand this often, but I wish I had. I wish I had given more loving outcomes to people as I did many future predictions. But I'm not disappointed. Like, she's not like talking about regret. She's just saying, I wish I'd had that experience as well. And she's saying, I think I shall. I was like, are you going to come back? Ooh, she goes, I'm back already. I'm a little girl in East Asia. I thought she said East India for a second, and she said, oh, well, the East Indian provinces are quite appealing too, Allison. And she's saying, no, she's a little girl in East Asia, and she's showing 7 years old. And I was like, are you doing the same thing? She said, oh, I'm very psychic. I'm having the love and light experience this time. Not that I didn't before. It's all love and light, but my soul wanted to have the opposite of that experience. It wanted to have the pure love and light. Oh, she's saying the little girl that she's incarnated as right now speaks to God, like only speaks to Source, and feels, she said she pretty much walks on air, Allison. Like, she's just very tuned into love all the time. Okay. She's saying questions. She said, keep in mind, I'm not attuned to making future predictions today. Jackie O style, yes, Candy. That's what it kind of reminded me of. She said, lovely woman. And I just saw Jackie O come in and go. Yes, the free will. She said, well, you came to experience the illusion of free will. So remember, you're meant to manifest things, meant to change things, but also meant to have the experience of believing that you're co-creating them. You are co-creating them, and you're meant, so it's like both. It's both free will and God will. Does that make sense? It's both. I've been talking with them like about this topic with them forever. It's both planned and meant to be manifested. So we're meant to play it out and to have the, she said, but you do not need the internal conflict, Allison. Because I was like, are we meant to have the conflict? I was kind of thinking, are we meant to have that? And she said, no, you're not meant to have conflict. You're meant to always choose the most loving, life-giving, exciting choice. And even when you do not, God works miracles out of that. It's part of the plan. So. Luis Gomez, she's saying, spend more time out in nature, get off the internet. Luis, I am not going to comment on that one. Carla, question for Jeane Allison: how are you able to channel and help people without getting too involved, without getting too hooked into people's emotions while channeling and after you have contact with them? I was looking to her for an answer, and she goes, Allison's very good at this one. I do get like emotionally into it sometimes, but I have kind of a personal policy, which is care but don't carry. And I've had a lot of experiences where I really wanted to fix things for people, to really carry them through it and get them through it. And you know what I mean? Like get people through it, get yourself through it, like that type of stuff. And what I realized is that often when we do that, we rob people of the experience that they needed to have of doing it themselves. You know, so there's a difference between being a support system and being the person doing all the heavy lifting. And what I've realized with readings is you can tell people any one number of things. Their guides can come in and say, hey, you got to change your diet, or hey, here's a good way to deal with this relationship stuff that you're going through. Here's a way to talk to this person, but then they don't do it. You know what I mean? Like that person has to make those choices still, you know? And they're saying, well, keep showing up and helping you. So like for me, I just realized like, well, I can't stay attached to it anymore. And I literally just don't. I care, but I'm not attached. Like I don't feel that I need to hold that person and control that person. I'm not here to control their journey for them, because then they don't have the experiences they need to have. You know what I mean? And that also demonstrates a lack of trust for me. And trust is an area I've worked so long on to cultivate. I refuse to give it up. I refuse, which is a control thing too. What's a guide for tapping into collective consciousness when in general? Lori, she said it is you. It is all of you. You literally can't not be tapped into it. She's saying often when you have thoughts that come out of nowhere, they were just talking to me about this morning, and they feel like they're not your own. Guess what? You're mirroring them. They're playing out in your life in some way, shape, or form, but you can be aware of like, where did this even come from? Why am I thinking about this, right? Collective consciousness stews over the same things all at the same time. She's talking about like a snowball effect and how social media doesn't only perpetuate it, it mirrors what's already happening internally. Okay? That's really interesting. They've had a lot of conversations with me about technology and all this shit about Facebook and losing privacy. I was like, what the fuck did people think? Like, I was just sitting there like, and I don't mean this in like a rude way. I just was sitting there like, did anyone really think your data was private? We're a collective consciousness. There is no privacy. Why are we obsessed with privacy? You know what I mean? And they said, Allison, people really, really, really don't like the minds are joined thing. And they're like, so what happens is you guys manifest all of these things that allow you guys to collectively manifest technological experiences like Facebook, where you're going to get over that shit over and over and over until you get the fuck over it. Like, oh my God, you guys have my whole contact list? yeah, you guys all know each other up here in collective consciousness. You're all family. Why would we not have your contact list? Like, they're like, so what's happening is people are pushing back against this and saying this isn't right, this isn't fair. She's like, this is a wonderful topic. She's like, ooh, like she's like clapping. So what's happening is like this actually is like mirroring our fears of being what we actually are, which is joined, being one together, being united. Because like it's like they're like, yes, of course they're going to give examples where the data is used imperfectly, like for negative things, but that's also the mirroring that fear that you can be manipulated on a subconscious level, right? So they're like, so everything that comes out in social media and your technological, everything manifested into your world is mirroring what's already happening in the collective consciousness. What are the fears that need to come up, that need to be faced? Of course, you manifest the experiences. If you're focused on avoiding them and making them not happen because you're afraid of them, there's fear there, you're going to manifest that into your environment as an opportunity to clear that fear and come to terms with it, right? And get over it, overcome it. Yeah. Is there value in embracing energy as a catalyst to help me initiate change? Energy is everything. You can't not embrace it. It's constant. It's constant flow, constant movement, ever changing, ever loving. Can dreams be helpful in guiding you? Yes, indeed they can. Only if used wisely and interpreted correctly. Remember that you make meaning of the meaningless, and you also make the meaningless have far greater significance than it ever needed to have. I had a dream that the president and vice president were no longer in power in the White House. I woke up, I felt maybe that was a sign, turning back into our own power. They're saying the power schemes, the power systems, they will change, but not, the structures will, it feels like the structures are going to change. They've been talking to me about this too, but not anytime soon. Not anytime soon. It feels like not in this millennia. Like it's going to, she's saying, but then again, time is irrelevant. So, like, not. She keeps saying, c'est la vie. And she said, the powers that be, being in the governmental systems, in religious systems in the past and now, mirror your belief that you are powerless already. That someone else has control over your destiny, control over your money, control over your fate, can create rules and restrictions for you and tell you who you are, what's allowed to be, like, and who's allowed to love who. She's talking about like gay marriage and stuff. Like, she's just like, you know, that mirrors your deep-rooted beliefs that it is not safe to be who you are and to be what you are, which is united in love, because we are all love. Sherry, she's saying, be outside. Be outside in your body more and more and more. What does burning sage really remove from a space? Is it relevant? It is relevant if you make it relevant. If you believe you can be attacked and you can be attacked by negative entities or energy, you will continue to attract that experience of fear to you. Not necessarily like negative energy or entities. You will see it in other forms residing in you. She said when you burn sage, it is as if you're saying you are separate from your source. You're separate from everyone else. So what it really clears is your own energy, your own fears, which is a great way to do it. I've done it a couple times where I'm like, I have these fears sitting in my body that have nothing to do with anyone else. And I just want to have like a ritual around that. But it's not about protecting me from anything, because you are everything, right? Yes, everything that is negative, Sherry, is fear-based. It's all fear. Yeah, there's no privacy because you're all one. It's a good thing. Everything's your family. Everything and everyone are family. It's all love. Candy, she said, thank you, my dear. My love, and my dear. How do I create more energy? She's saying Oscar is a heightened energetic state, meaning stay up all night. She's saying energy is energy, so it is tapping into the energy you already have and expanding and growing it and understanding that it is limitless. Many beings who go through awakenings go through phases of sleeping what they feel based on our, what's normal and all that shit in our society, based on your constructs is what she's saying. They sleep too much, or they go through phases where they're not sleeping at all, waking up in the middle of the night. They think it's spirits waking them up. Sometimes we are. Sometimes we pop by, we'll pop in, check on you, share a message. This being has been woken up by light language beings before. It was really interesting. It was really cool. But really, it's like your energy kind of is changing, so you don't sleep the same way and stuff. And so she's saying in order to have more energetic experiences that are pleasing to you, you must begin to think pleasing thoughts about yourself and about your energy. My energy cup runneth over. There is no cup. It's ever expanding. I'm always full up. Picturing a full tank, things like that. Are crystals the same as sage? Do crystals hold the healing properties claimed? They may. She's saying they may. They can. It depends on how you think about crystals. Allison, she's saying Allison has very little attachment to crystals. She simply puts them in her pockets for play. So they only create that experience for her. They do not affect her vibrational energy because she understands her vibrational energy is the same as the crystals, is the same as the sky, is the same as the person next to her, is the same as the trees. It's all one vibrational energy. And if you're of a high vibrational energy, you recognize that in everyone else, even if they do not recognize it collectively in themselves. So she's saying when you're in a higher vibrational frequency, you do not need tools to maintain it. You just are in it. And she said, and even that thought system is an evolved thought system. Does that kind of make sense? Like you start to have thought systems and stuff that allow that come from that vibrational state of oneness. So it kind of is like it's kind of an ascension. Okay. I am going to hop on off, you guys, because I am feeling the need for a little bit of a walk. And she's saying, oh, very well. And she was like, thank you, Allison. Well, thank you so much, guys, for coming. This was a really fun one for me. This was really neat. I'm glad we got to do this. So I think we're going to go for a walk. Yeah, she's like, I'll join you. She's saying Allison likes to walk silently sometimes and not channel. I do. I like to just hang. So have a drink of tea, a little sip of tea or something. I have a feeling Grace is going to pop in too. So I was going to see the pond again. So I will be back soon. We have got a lot of really, really fun things coming up. The new Infinitely Wise Woman 2.0 program is going to combine receiving all together. So manifesting, channeling, and connecting to spirit, receiving messages from spirit, receiving more of the experiences that you want, receiving the mindset shifts and thought systems and belief system shifts that you need, receiving loving relationships, receiving love in the forms it's already in, receiving what you really are is coming in the new program. It is all connected. And so when I was thinking about creating the next wave of Infinitely Wise Woman, I knew this needs to go beyond just channeling, but we will learn how to channel, connect with source, receive messages from guides in there. So it's going to be a really evolved experience. I'm really excited. And there will be a lot of focus on manifesting in there. We're going to do some adventures and experiments. So I'm really, 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 really pumped about it. So if you guys signed up for the wait list, or if you didn't yet, make sure you do that. If you did, you're going to see more information coming soon on it. But it's going to be a little different than last time. I'm really plussing it up. So if you're curious, make sure you sign up for the wait list. It's in the group. so that you're the first people to know, or PM me. I've had people like reaching out like, oh, I'm really interested in this. I'm so excited, because all of this stuff is about energy. It's all the same thing, you know? So, and I think we separate things out like, you know, I got to focus on one thing at one time. Like, you know, am I going to learn how to channel right now, or am I going to learn how to manifest? Guess what? They're related. Totally related, right? Receiving is receiving. Doesn't matter. Do I want to focus on, you know, taking a course on my relationship and my soulmate lover? Or do I want to focus on, you know, manifesting money? Well, those two things are the same. They're the same, you know. So it's all connected. It's all the same. So we're going to open the floodgates to receiving. And I've noticed that, like, once I started letting myself receive spiritually, especially, a lot of the floodgates opened and improved in other areas, because it's very much about your vibration, like we talked about over the last 2 weeks, right? So that's a lot of what it's going to be about: vibrational alignment, raising the vibe, elevating your state. And we're going to give you really clear practices. The teams are going to come in and channel like banshees, because they're going to teach in there. That's how I run a lot of my stuff. The teams come in and teach in the paid courses too. So I'm excited for that. So let me know if you have questions about it. PM me. I'm going to get going and enjoy my walk. Go and have a great day, guys.